9 o'clock, July 9th. This is the Will Marotti Show. Your host, Will Marotti. Gorgeous George at the board today, flying solo again as AT's on vacation. Our crack researcher, LJ, back at work. And, of course, our beautiful call screener, Roz, waiting to take your calls, 860-788-4448. What a day we're going to have. What a great show for you today. I'm so excited. Tuesdays are always a great show because we have George Colli on, and George, a longtime journalist and a really, not just a sharp guy, but he's a nice guy. I've known George for many, many years. I'm so grateful that he comes on our program. And then followed by I call him the dean of Connecticut news, Chris Powell. Chris has been on the scene longer than dinosaurs. And, been still writes, writing a lot, writes for a lot of local papers. Former managing editor of the Journal-Inquirer. Chris will be on later in the show. It's going to be a good day today. Just some quick things that I want to run by you here. This is, again, another green energy failure story. They're saying that there are huge problems with powering up EV charging stations. And 3 out of 4 EV charging developers. Now, I noticed this is on Route 68 in Connecticut. There's a sign up, planning and zoning, blah, blah, blah. They're going to put an EV charging station there. My question is, does the town have enough power to supply the EV charging station? And this is truly a significant issue. Of the 211 power station charger development companies surveyed by a company called Zendy, California-based survey company, 75% said electrical grid limitations are among, if not the biggest roadblock to building EV charging stations. Unreal. So you can have all the EV cars you want, but we can't charge them. And we've been saying this on this program for years. Eversource said we can't take care of this. It's unbelievable. Oh my gosh. Well, that's just one thing. Top mortgage lender, Newrez, is laying off. This is under the Joe Biden economy is so strong. Laying off 265 employees in Colorado and Arizona. This is the third round of layoff following the acquisition of ComputerShare Mortgage Services, an affiliate that specializes in specialized loan servicing. Another 78 employees were let go, will be let go August 26th in their Tempe, Arizona location. In May, they cut 123 jobs in Florida, effective July 1, and are experiencing another 317 by August 2nd. So that's because the economy is so strong. This is alarming. This next alarming story, U.S. consumer borrowing increased in May by the most in 3 months. Outstanding credit debt. Are you sitting down? Or if you're driving your car, you should pull your car over. Increased credit debt rose $11.4 billion after a revised $6.5 billion gain in April. Revolving credit, which includes credit cards, also advanced $7 billion. Non-revolving credit, such as loans, vehicles, and school tuition, increased $4.3 billion. Americans who have, remember back when they were giving all that money away, Gorgeous George, the government was just handing out checks and people were getting money and people were loaded, right? And the economy was great. We even saw it in church offerings. Our church offerings were better the first year of COVID because they were giving out so much free money and people were doing the right thing, giving to their house of worship. Well, many Americans have whittled away their pent-up savings accumulated during the pandemic payments. Combined with the rising cost of living, by the way, a cumulative increase of 20% since Joe Biden took office. Let's be accurate, 20.1% cumulative inflation rate. Monthly consumer credit report doesn't include mortgages. Latest quarterly data from New York Fed shows that household, including mortgages, rose, ready for this, rose in the first 3 months of the year, $17.7 trillion. All right, where that little flare at the end comes from a movie that stays embedded in my warped mind. I'm going to send an autographed copy of a book. By the way, the three of you that won books last week for YouTube subscription on the way. I'm going to give an autographed copy of a book. If anybody knows what movie I think of when I say things like $17.5 trillion. Good morning, Dorothy. Good morning, Luke. The weird mind of the host. Good morning, Selma, Doreen. Lori, good morning. Carol L, good morning. Luke, good morning. Chris F, good morning. Lori L, good morning, as always. Judy P, good morning. Cassie, good morning. Elaine P, good morning. Terrence, good morning. Tracy, good morning. Hey, are you out of Facebook jail, Tracy? Are you wherever you were banished from? Gene S, good morning. Greg P, good morning. Teresa, good morning. Ice Rocket, good morning. Donna T, good morning. Corey M, good morning. Paul M, good morning. GG, good morning. Melissa D, good morning. Karen, good morning. Barbara, good morning. Tracy, you're still in jail. Okay, I'm sorry, brother. Shelby, good morning. Where are you guys now, Shelby? I know you're traveling here, but where are you guys from? Your journeys from Illinois. Where are you? Rob, that's a great guess. My brother-in-law says Caddyshack. It's not Caddyshack, but that's close. It's close because of the actors. There's some characters. See if that's a hint. Very good guess, but not right. Jeff B, good morning. Kate, good morning. So consumer, just horrible. I mean, again, you can say all you want. You can tell a lie over and over and over again, and you can say it as many times as you want, but people just aren't going to believe it. Now, all the problems with Boeing. I have to laugh. A good friend of mine who's a pilot for Delta sent me a Fox News snippet about pastors wanting to use or potentially using more near Buffalo. Shuffle to Buffalo. Okay, Luke says shuffle to Buffalo. Okay, good. Austin Powers. Lori, that's a good guess. But no. You probably won't get it, but I mean, I don't know. Rob was close. Caddyshack. I mean, it's that era. It's that era of movies. And there's a crossover with actors. $17 billion. So my friend from Jeff, that flies for Delta, sent me a thing from Fox saying that more pastors are relying on AI and all that stuff. And I said, I'm way too old school. I can't do that. I can't. I know pastors are doing it. I know they're doing it. They're doing sermons on AI. They're giving sermons from AI. I know they're doing it. If I have to do that, it's time to retire. It's time for me to go. Can't do it. I said, well, we were joking back and forth. And I said, yeah, maybe someday we'll have AI pilots. A little shot at Jeff, right? He goes, it's coming, definitely. And I said, yeah, maybe Boeing can lead the way. Boeing having problems here. Boeing accepts a plea deal to avoid a criminal trial over the 737 MAX crashes. Justice Department telling us that Boeing is expected to plead guilty to fraud in connection with the approval of its 737 MAX planes before two of them crashed, killing 346 people. Victims of the plane crash families are disappointed that Boeing will now have an option to accept a plea deal shielding the aerospace giant from accountability. Boeing will plead guilty to criminal fraud charges. Federal prosecutors gave Boeing the choice last week, entering a guilty plea and paying a fine as part of the sentence or facing trial for felony charges. See, that's what happens. When you go on trial, you're rolling the dice. You're rolling the trading places. Good guess, Tracy. No. Tommy Boy, no. So, yes, Lori M got it. Stripes. Blown up, sir. I know. I'm not well. I mean, at least I admit I'm not well, right? Other people try to hide it. But anyway. So the plea deal only covers the wrongdoing that Boeing did in the crash in Indonesia and Ethiopia. So that's what happened. Now, having said that, United Airlines flight loses a wheel on takeoff. Monday, a plane took off from Los Angeles, landed safely in Denver. A Boeing 757 was recovered in Los Angeles. It lost a wheel. Plane took off, lost fuel. Boeing ended production of the 757 in 2004. Plane, you get on a plane, chances are the plane you're on is 20, 25 years old. Those things last forever. Rarely do you get a new one. And so there's that. All right, let's take a moment and gather our thoughts a little bit here as we prepare to do our 9/11 prayer. And a lot to pray for. I mean, seriously, I feel like the country is an incredibly precarious situation, having someone leading the country that really isn't capable. I said to my dad last night, we were celebrating my brother-in-law's birthday, and we went over to my father's house, and his lovely wife. And I said to my dad, yes, and my dad's 86. And I said, Dad, how does it feel to know that you are in better shape physically and mentally than the guy that's leading the most powerful nation in the world? And he got a big smile on his face. I said, we can make it happen, Dad. We can make it happen. We can slide you right in there as a replacement for Biden. My dad at 86 would run circles around Biden. Now, listen, that's why it's not about age. It's about capacity. At 86, my dad works every day. He's still the king of the one-liners. He's sharp, and he is in better shape, certainly mentally, and I would say physically too, because he works so much, better than Joe Biden. I think activity is the key to longevity when it comes to life. All right, let's take a moment and pray, shall we? Let's gather our thoughts. Heavenly Father, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we thank you for another day of life. We thank you for another day to enjoy the creation that you have so wonderfully made for us, one that we should take care of too. It's ours to care and manage, but it's a beautiful place, and we're grateful to be here. We're thankful for all the blessings in our lives, our families, our friends, your grace, your love, your mercy. Most important, your forgiveness. Also, thanks for your patience too, because we are all mess ups, and we need that. And the home waiting for heaven. We're grateful for all you do for us, God. Thank you. Lord, our country needs your help as much now as we've ever needed it. Complete chaos. Those that would divide us even greater, would inject more uncertainty into our lives, would desire to dominate and control us rather than let us live freely. So we need your help, God. And I pray that there would be another great awakening here in the country. A great awakening that would outpace and outrival all the other great awakenings combined, and that we would see tens of millions of people turning to you for wisdom, for guidance, for understanding, faith, salvation. And according to your will, we pray that you might still give this country years to be a blessing to others, a good country, a generous country, a charitable country. We thank you for all the men and women who serve in the military. We pray you bless and protect them today. Comfort their families as they're separated. Thank you for our veterans who've so willingly served. Bless them and their families today. All of our first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, particularly very difficult jobs, and Border Patrol. You couldn't pay me enough to be a Border Patrol person. Thank you, God, for these folks that are willing to serve. Help them in this time of difficulty and struggle. And God, we thank you for our audience, and we pray that you would help us be a blessing to them. Help them to be a blessing to us by sharing the program, expanding our reach and our audience, and bless them today for matters of healing, for health, reconciliation, for relationships, resource, finances, whatever they need, God. Answer their prayers. Let them know that you're real. Let them know that you hear and you see and you do answer as we know you do. And we thank you for today, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Can I get an amen out there? Amens are gladly received on social. My sinuses are so messed up today. I just want to stick an air hose up my nose and full blast it. I'm so congested. And of course, I'm a little itchy. I know I shouldn't do it. It's not very professional. I understand. But you love me. It's part of my charm, my quirkiness. I know. All right. You know what? It's early, but I think he might be ready. Joining us now, longtime journalist, great investigative journalist, and the creator and curator of the Connecticut Capitalist, the one and only George Colli. Good morning, George.
Pastor Will, great to be back.
Hey, you're looking good today, my friend.
Well, thank you. I was just hearing you say about your sinuses. I think that now that we're on the internet, not the radio, that may be what we need for views, Pastor Will. Is just every now and then throw that hose up there, blow it out, kind of It's like the sink or swim on Letterman used to be, or whatever that.
Oh gosh, it's tough. It is so funny, and people will understand this if they've had to jump the shark. Radio and video are two totally different creatures. Because when you're on radio, you don't worry about what you look like. I mean, God love him, Ray Dunaway. For 35, show up and hair looks like he combed his hair with a towel, hasn't shaved, ripped T-shirt. God bless him, because it didn't matter. It didn't matter, right? What you look like. And I have to admit, there were a few days in 13 years that I was late, and man, I blasted to the station. I hadn't even shaved. But again, it doesn't matter. Nobody sees you, right? When you add the video to this, as you know, you're not only thinking about what you're saying, and when you're live, you've got to have the filters running when people are, particularly with call-ins. But now you have to care about how you appear, how you come across. So it's a much different.
It's a different game.
Environment. Different game.
When I first walked into the TIC studio and I was guest hosting, and I would sit right in Ray's seat when he got done. And when you can get away with wearing a radio, it's very different than TV. What I've learned about the internet, Pastor.
Yes, please instruct.
I would, sometimes when I was doing my shows, I would tape an interview, or I would tape a segment, or whatever it may be. And maybe I would tape it the night before for the next morning. Well, part of the problem is you got to make sure you're wearing the same clothes all the way through your show. So I've ended up buying about 15 black T-shirts, and it's now the only thing that fits and that I wear, because I would always want to make sure I had the black T-shirt on, whatever day it was.
That's too funny.
So that was something I kind of picked up. People got on me at one point. They saw that I had a different shirt on in the interview in the second section than I had in the third segment, and so that's another thing I picked up.
That is funny.
You're good for wearing the blazer.
Yeah, blazers are good, because it gives you a little bit of a upscale look, and it covers some of the girth.
Believe me, I know the girth covering, how that works.
Hey, listen, couple of things I just want to hit on real quick. I pulled this off of your site, and I would encourage you to go there. Connecticut Capitalist, 2 articles I pulled off your site. One was, and I wasn't aware of this. I knew there was problems, but talk about not understanding who your friends are. Apparently, in New York City, of course, I'm very concerned about New York City because my daughter lives there. New York, in a Pride Parade, Saturday, I guess this was, Pride Parade, a brawl breaks out, and it's the pro-Hamas people going after the gay Pride people. I'm like, don't you know Queers for Palestine? These are your friends, even though they would be executed in Gaza for being openly gay. But these are your friends. They're promoting you, and the crazy pro-Hamas people attack the gay Pride people. What the heck is going on there, George?
Yeah, it's I've been waiting for that. There's a lot, I think that this is what I've understood by walking by or purposely going to cover quite a few of these protests, is it has very little to do with Palestine or freeing Palestine. And I think I've said this before, and I really want to get it across to folks. It is these protests in New York City for the pro-Hamas protests are put on by the Democratic Socialists of New York.
Yeah.
It is essentially the Working Family Party of New York.
Okay.
They are the majority government. The majority of the people that are in New York City government are consider themselves to be Democratic Socialists, right? Not just with the AOC, the Jamal Bowmans that you see in Congress. You can only imagine what it's like on the neighborhood level here in the city. Right. And so, anytime that these groups protest, whether it's climate, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago with the climate people all from Brooklyn that were, that interfered at the Travelers, whether it's the immigration, when you had problems outside the immigration shelters the last summer, you saw, there were rioting, there was, just huge crowds outside. It was a mess. It was often the same Brooklyn Democratic Socialists, far leftists, that were instigating the problems. They would go there and start problems. I saw it. I lived across the street from a 400-person shelter. I would see it. There was an issue one time where there was a horrible accident. A car had rammed into the corner of the street where most of the immigrants would charge their phones up on these stations that they have. And as the media started to show up, somebody died in it. I was the first one to see. It was a bunch of people that I knew that I was bringing to church with me on Sunday mornings, a bunch of the immigrants. And they started to come up to me, Jorge, this guy's trying to ask me to have me say that, and he was saying in Spanish, but trying to get me to say that this was intentional, that the guy was trying to hit us on purpose. At the same exact time, there were protests going on in France like crazy. If you
Yeah,
remember last summer with the immigrants, because
remember that
one was killed, and then there was an uprising. So this is what they try to do. And so, am I surprised that the actual hardcore pro-Hamas crowd is going to protest the Pride Parade? Not surprised at all. I mean, they're you end up getting these two groups now that are certainly are part of the same coalition, but have very different, I think, end games, that they're pushing for. And they're attention seekers. I mean, it's look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And whether it's the climate group or whether it's the pro-Hamas group or whether it's, the Queers for Palestine or the militant trans groups, I mean, whatever it may be, they just want constant attention. And so, if all of a sudden there's going to be a whole month of parades and, those are going to end up taking away from your protests that week, and then, there's going to be some problems.
I try to explain this to people all the time. People don't understand the concept of intersectionality, where they're taking all these groups, anybody that's oppressed, anybody that's a grievance, they all come together and they just trade signs. They go to this protest, but this is different about the pro-Hamas people, and it's different in general about the extreme progressive left. At some point, the thing that works for these guys is you have to have a common enemy. So they all focus on, you name it, whatever it is. They hate
America and the cops.
Right. Americans, colonialists and the cops, whatever. But eventually you start running out of enemies. And so then they have to turn on somebody. And I tell people, particularly young white people, I tell all the time, eventually you're going to become the enemy. Because when they're going to turn on each other. That's what happens. They start turning inward. When they're and I think this is a classic example of the people here who are so dumb they don't understand that in Saudi Arabia they throw gay people off the top of buildings. That you think you're going to be queer in Gaza, they're going to kill you. You don't stand a chance of being a queer in Gaza. You've got a better chance of being queer in Israel than you have to be queer in Gaza.
Well, Israel is the only country, as far as I know, or Tel Aviv may even be the only city really in that whole region of the world where you can live freely.
Right.
I mean, and in 72 different genders and everything else, that they're teaching now, they're not teaching that in Palestinian schools in Gaza.
No.
As a matter of fact, they're teaching to hate the West. And martyrdom is praised. I mean, it's Pastor, and I don't know if you saw this, on some of these New York campuses when they were having their camp outs this spring. You had like mass, like it was like group and mass like conversions to Muslim. And so you had like, and I'm not making fun of people here, but you had like the purple hair and the green hair and, and all the tattoos and all this. And now all of a sudden they put a veil on their head and they call themselves Muslim. I don't know if they understand that, that in the Muslim faith, you're Muslim for life now. And I mean, there are certain things that you are expected to abide by in that religion that could get you stoned. And I don't know if these college kids understand.
They don't. They just want to be down with the cause.
They're heading straight to Sharia law. I mean, it's just they don't get it. They don't.
Well, how many times Joe with the mic goes out to a campus and says, "River to the sea." What river are we talking about? What sea? And they're like,
no idea.
I'm not really educated on this. I saw the worst one ever. They went to one and nobody would talk to the correspondent. Going, well, what about? You need to talk to the organizers. I can't talk about that. And this is what they tell them to do. If the guy kept pursuing you, asking questions, you start clapping. So all these people are like clapping mindlessly. I mean, this is sad.
By the way, it's the same exact thing they did in 2012 or 2010 during Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's the same organizers here in New York City from Occupy Wall Street that are organizing these protests. And so they would and they would mock you, right? So they want all these changes. Nobody knew what they wanted. And then they would say, yeah, we have a spokesperson. They'll be out in 2 minutes. And they'd have me stand in a suit, right, in my tie. I'm working for Fox. Stand by and I'll send you the picture. Stand by like a podium where a guy with a giant eyeball head on, like costume head on, would come and sit there and answer yes/no answers. There's a picture at one point of me that my photographer got
where I was just the spokesperson would wear this.
Oh yeah, it was a spokesperson. The spokesperson from the homeless encampment. I mean, it's and the fact that the media gives them any sort of credibility is insane to me. How many times for 4 months straight Connecticut reporters would go to these protests, would ask the same questions, and would get the same answers. If they ever gave an answer on anything, there was never anything new that you heard. They mocked the media, and the media's treating them like conquering heroes.
Yeah,
it's
there's just no discretion. There's no discretion at all. Let's just, as time is moving on here, let's just switch a little bit. You've done Whitehouse press briefings. You know that environment. Yeah. Are you surprised, encouraged that finally the press corps is pushing back and they're asking the hard questions? Are you surprised by that, or?
Well, I mean, I was a White House correspondent in 2016 and 2017. So I was down there working for the Cox Media Group during the 2016 election, the last year of Obama, and then the first year of Trump. And I know in that first year of Trump what that press corps could be like when all of a sudden there is a story or there is an issue that the White House may not be upfront about. It would be 5 days straight, every single reporter asking the same question until they got an answer. It's part of what got me so upset with what we've seen here in the last 4 years, whether it be on the local level in Connecticut or in Washington, D.C. Yeah. These same reporters that would all be like really trying to get the answer. It would shame you if you didn't give it. We're just going along with all this stuff that was made up. Finally, this week, we're starting to see the reporters go, hey, guys, we need to get some information here. You know, this president, and you saw yesterday what was a really heated back and forth between Karine Jean-Pierre and one of the reporters, where he said, you know, we're not getting any information here. You're not being straight with us. I've been waiting 4 years for that, Pastor. The same people I worked with. And so I'm encouraged. Now, maybe they realize that, you know, Trump's going to win, so they better start being reporters again because
he'll lock them out. He'll throw them out. Yeah. Listen, nobody gave more access to the press than Donald Trump.
I would call in and beg for an interview.
I mean, he'd be walking to the plane and he'd stop and he'd do a mini gaggle. I mean, it was just, you know, they have nothing to complain about. But, you know, here's my struggle. We all have multiple parts of our personality. Not that it's a disorder, but, you know, I'm in and out of stuff. So in this venue, I'm kind of a political commentator, but I'm always a pastor. I'm a Christian first. So for me as a pastor, I have a high empathy level for other people. I have to tell you, George, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually am feeling sorry for KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre. I can't imagine if I'm going up to that podium every day, shoveling manure to the reporters and then trying to find some way to not answer the questions that are so obvious to all of us. Yeah. Like yesterday with that exchange with the Parkinson's things. They got the log, the visitor logs. A Parkinson doctor showing up, and she comes up with, well, there are thousands of military personnel at the White House, and so all of them have, and for security reasons. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about?
They can't say who the doctors are. I mean, there's one thing not to be able to talk about what patients are doing. I understand that, but you can't say what doctors maybe showing up. Now, here's what's unbelievable and you're seeing this at all levels, I think, right now, as some of the media starts to wake up, and I am very encouraged by this.
Okay, is
the shock by the Biden administration, or even right down to the Connecticut level, how surprised they are when the follow-up question comes. For 4 years, it's been ask a question, the government elected official gives an answer, and everybody just goes along with it.
That's Next question.
Right. I mean, Ned Lamont, it was. I would scream at the walls during these press briefings.
I know.
Well, we finally got it now, and you're seeing there's like, you don't believe us? You don't believe us that the sky is green? We've told you the sky is green. Don't question it. I
mean, this is almost Watergate quality. I mean, this is in terms of the questioning from the reporters. This is like high level stuff. It's good. Now, this hot off the press from our good friends at hotter.com. Expect a 180 reversal in calls for Biden to leave.
Oh, it's all going to stop now.
So now they're saying, people are now starting to step in. The Morning Joe, he's on Morning Joe yesterday. Biden, question, are you going to step aside? The bottom line here is we're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, he says emphatically to Morning Joe. And now they're starting to hear these voices in the background. So, well, maybe we jumped on Joe too quickly. Maybe we can't off him. Sometimes if you're going to, go after the king, you got to kill the king. I mean, they're in a bad place right now.
They're realizing Kamala Harris is the only option. Whether it was Obama that was pushing this, the coup that night after the debate, and it was an organized coup.
Right.
Whether it was Obama, Harris, right? Clinton, the far left, because they're upset with Bowman, whoever it may have been,
right,
and the media jumped on it immediately. They're now realizing there's only one option. There's $250 million raised. The only two people that can use that are a Biden or a Harris. And they're realizing that it's August, that they thought they could play it cute with this entire primary. They blew the RFK out, who right now, I got to tell you, a lot of Democrats are probably giving him another.
That's another story. I see his name is coming up more and more to be the Democrat nominee. I mean, progressives won't stand for it, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting.
Let me tell you, RFK does not fit into the Democrat or Republican box that the media or
right.
politicians put themselves in.
Right.
He is as far left on some things as anything you're going to meet. Right. His vice presidential candidate is even farther left on some things. But you know what? You just get the sense that it would be a very different vibe with a far left RFK administration than what we're seeing right now with this Biden Obama.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm no Kennedy supporter.
No,
and I don't dislike him personally. I dislike some of Biden's people personally. But again, I think Trump is the only person strong enough, mean enough, savvy enough, gutsy enough, rich enough. I think he's the only person that can start straightening this mess out. George, we are out of time. I can't say thank you enough for you taking time and coming on. Folks love having you on. Comments all the time.
I love the comments. I always read them afterwards, so I appreciate other things that people say. And also, I'll say this, Pastor, I'm starting up the shows here probably tomorrow, and would love to have you as a regular guest as well.
Yeah, it'd be great. Wonderful.
The Colli network is coming. We got a few people, some voices, and would love certainly to post your shows every day on the Connecticut Capitalist, and certainly have you as a regular contributor.
That'd be wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 3-minute break. A little bit late, but that's okay. And then when we come back, we're going to have the Dean of Connecticut Journalism, Chris Powell, on, and we'll talk some more things about Connecticut politics and some national politics. Always a good segment. So, Gorgeous George, hit the button. 3 minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Wasn't that a great interview with George Colli? We really appreciate George. Again, I've known George for years and years. He's a great guy and been on the scene for a long time. Hey, so we're going to open phone lines right now, and we're going to take the next few minutes before we have our next guest, which will be Chris Powell. Love to hear from you today. 860-788-4448. Any comments about the conversation you just had with Chris? I mean, this is like well, first it was a secret, but now it's like now it's an open secret. Um, there's an anybody but Kamala faction. Morning, Gene. Good morning, Deborah. Thank you, Gene S and Gene K. Good morning. There's anybody but Kamala faction in the Democrat Party, but I don't know how they get around that. I don't see how that even works. How do you explain as you campaign on we're the party for women and we're the party for people of color? That's what Democrats say. I don't believe it most of the time. That's what they say. And we put in the first ever woman of color as VP. And then when it's her time, because the president is incapable of continuing in office, when it's her time, you dump her and you put in somebody else. How do you possibly explain that as a party? So I don't know. How do they get around it? I see that as a massive, massive dilemma for the Democrats. Speculation continues to swirl around the frenzied campaign to replace Joe Biden. Who might the replacement be? Obviously, the names come up all the time. Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. These are disasters. Their states are dumpster. See, that's the problem. They don't have a bench. They have to go to governors, and the governors whose states are absolute disasters, dumpster fires. And so who are they going to get? Vice President Kamala Harris, this is from redstate.com. Vice President Kamala Harris, on the other hand, might be an afterthought. Hypothetical situation where there's talk of replacing the top of the ticket, you would think you would turn to your VP. She's the vice president. If she's supposed to be ready now to take the country over at the loss or whatever of a president, you mean to tell me she's not good enough to run as a candidate? That does not show great wisdom or preparedness by the Democrat Party. I mean, it's just horrible. Of course, she was a failed presidential candidate. I mean, a lot of you will remember. People say, how about Tulsi Gabbard for Trump's VP? Looks like it's J.D. Vance. That's what I'm reading. J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio. Looks like he's in the top spot for VP for Trump. And it makes sense. Ohio's a huge state, a lot of electoral votes. Virginia's trending Trump. I heard last night someone say if Trump wins Virginia, it's over. And Virginia would come in fairly early in results election night. He said if they win, that's Terrence. Terrence, shout out to Gigi. You. Yeah, I mean, it just. But Tulsi Gabbard. Here's the thing about Tulsi Gabbard, Chris F. Tulsi Gabbard body slammed Kamala Harris when she was running for president about the drug thing in California. I mean, destroyed her on stage. And I think Tulsi Gabbard. I think she'd be, again. Don't keep in mind, Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong Democrat up until recently. So don't expect her to be a conservative. She's going to be, if anything, center left, and that's the best you could hope for. Huckabee's past this time, David. I love Mike Huckabee, but past this time, maybe, and he's having fun. He's enjoying his life. Daughter's the governor, Arkansas. He's enjoying life. He's on TV. He's in Nashville. But no, I don't think Huckabee would make it. Wouldn't help the ticket. J.D. Vance was very anti-Trump in the early days. So there's that. But, same thing with Rubio, right? Rubio anti-Trump, but you can't have Rubio because they're both from Florida, right? Can't do that. Because Trump moved from New York to Florida. So, yeah. Yeah, I could see that, Tracy. Tulsi Gabbard, put her as Secretary of Veterans Affairs. I absolutely put her in charge of Veterans Affairs. I think she'd be great at that position. She might even be great as Secretary of Defense. I mean, I don't know that she has the experience necessarily for that, but I don't know all that you need. But yeah, and the other thing, if you brought Tulsi on as VP, the problem with that would be you'd really anger and frustrate a lot of Republicans. And so I don't know that would be the best move, but yeah, I mean, there's the movement. We're trying to get rid of. This was an interview done the other day. Back in June, Anderson Cooper, CNN, interviewing Harris. Cooper said Biden was a very different person on stage 4 years ago when you debated him. That's certainly true, is it not? This is right after debate performance. And Kamala Harris said, well, I got the point you're making. The last 3.5 years up until today performed in a way, a certain way. And so then that was the end of that. I like Elise Stefanik. Carol L says Elise Stefanik. I like Elise Stefanik. I don't know if she's ready for prime time, but I wouldn't get oh man, if Trump called on Stefanik to be VP, you wouldn't hear a complaint from me. In fact, I might like Elise Stefanik better than JD Vance. But I think, with every president, with every executive, there has to be a comfortability level. And I don't know where Trump is at. Might be more comfortable with JD Vance than he would Elise Stefanik. Jay, good morning. Great to see you today. But this Parkinson's story won't go away. I mean, listen, at this point, does anybody not believe that there's some illness problem, there's some capacity problem with Joe Biden? Does anybody not believe that? I don't think so. I don't know how you could possibly watch the debate, the interview with George Stephanopoulos. I don't know how you could watch any of that and not come away and say, yeah, there's a problem. He's messed up, right? You could not do that. But this Parkinson thing is serious. But again, it's something, right? It's something, whether it's Parkinson's or, just your dementia of some level, whatever, there's something wrong. I don't really know. It matters at this point what it is other than it is. And so, who do you want to answer the phone at 3:00 in the morning? Well, not Joe Biden. Clearly he wouldn't be his day runs from 4, what was it? 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's his day. He doesn't do well at nights. Can you imagine? The phone rings at the White House at 3:00 in the morning. Oh my! I like Cassie. I like Byron Donaldson, but the same thing. I don't think he's ready yet. But I like him. He's a good guy. But I like all those. I like JD Vance. I think he brings a lot of strength to the table. He brings Ohio, certainly. That's no wrong with that. Gabby would just completely infuriate too many Republicans, and I like Elise Stefanik, just not ready though. But I do feel sorry for Jean-Pierre Corinne Jean-Pierre, because I mean, can you imagine the pressure every day? You're going out to the podium and everything you say is a complete patented lie. You're just lie after lie after lie. Oh my gosh. I love Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And you know what? After the abuse she took as a press secretary, might be a good payback to let her be vice president. I'm not sure. All right, we've got a guest on the line on video. Again, I call him the Dean of Connecticut Journalism. He's been a journalist in Connecticut many, many years, many moons, and still active, still writes, still very involved in what's happening, and a former managing editor of the Journal Inquirer, which used to be a fabulous outlet. So we're grateful to have let's welcome the Dean, Chris Powell. Hey, Chris.
Hey, well, great to be with you.
So how do you like that new title? I just confirmed that yesterday. I called you the Dean of Connecticut Journalism. So
Well, as someone who dropped out of college, I appreciate it highly.
you too, huh? I want to get into, if you want, and Chris is all of his writings are available at Chris Powell column, chrispowellcolumn.com. And before we get to some of the things you've written recently, what do you think about all? I mean, how crazier could it get at the White House, Chris? I mean,
Well, I think it could get crazier. If Biden does a face plant at an international event, I'll be, very interested to hear what Senators Blumenthal and Murphy say about it. There's a report from the Axios news service today has pictures of basically briefing documents that the White House staff gives to Biden when he goes to speak somewhere. There's pictures of how he should walk on the stage and where the podium is. It's, this is his own staff acknowledging that he can't function. Now these documents are public, but
who's leaking that stuff? That's what I want to know. Who's letting that stuff out, Chris?
I'd say a patriot is leaking that stuff.
No, I'm just saying, but you would think the people closest to you would have enough loyalty and common sense to not throw you under the bus. But apparently, I mean, again, and I, it's the whole WikiLeaks thing. I mean, somebody should talk about this stuff, but at the same time, is that what the person who is working for you is supposed to do? I don't know. I struggle with that.
Well, somebody obviously thinks that the president is no longer fit for the office if he ever was. But, it's not just the president who's not fit. It's the Democrats who have been covering up for Biden for a long time. And most of the mainstream news organizations have been covering up. I mean, I follow things fairly closely, and I could see for at least the last 2 years that Biden was having trouble.
Yeah.
But now it's a sensation because it happened on national television. But the journalists covering the White House have seen this. The hours that supposedly Biden is able to function in are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
That's okay.
The Babylon Bee had a great mock story the other day saying that the State Department had sent a letter to our international enemies asking them, to attack us only between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.
The Babylon Bee is so funny. I mean, they've got a very interesting style. Isn't a NATO conference? Are we hosting a NATO conference here?
Yes, today.
Today, if Biden's staffers see how diminished he is, you've got to think the other world leaders behind closed doors are like scratching their heads, going, "Why is this guy meeting with us?"
Well, they already have. There was the European conference a few weeks ago, and it was source reporting, but mainstream news organizations did report that the other leaders over there thought that, yes, he's much diminished. And there was, video suggesting that, he had trouble maintaining his train of thought. In fact, he was at times it looked like he was wandering away.
Yeah, the Italian Prime Minister Maloney had to bring him back in a little bit at one point.
And then there's the video at a campaign rally a few weeks ago where former President Obama had to take him by the elbow and guide him off the stage. Then,
I mean, I don't think there's any debate, question at this point with honest people that there's obviously something wrong, with Joe Biden at this point. I did joking at a birthday party last night. My dad's 86. My dad, 86, works every day. Funny, king of the one-liners. And I said to him last night, I said, "Dad, what do you think? How do you feel knowing that you are in better shape physically and mentally than the guy that's running the United States?" And he gave me this kind of smirk look. I said, "We could do it, Dad. We could slot you in for Joe." But it's true. That's why I say it's not an age thing. People, 68% think he's too old. It's not an age thing. It's a capacity thing. You and I both know people in their 90s who could run circles around Biden today. So age is not necessarily the determining factor. It is mental acuity and where you're at in terms of ability to process. And, and Joe
the
isn't there.
problem is that our politics is so crazy now that, half the country would prefer, a senile, demented president to Trump. And I'm not sure anything that happens with either of the guys is going to make much difference. In fact, when Trump was convicted, his conviction made very little difference in the polls. And
right, if anything, it helped him for fundraising.
Yeah, and the same thing with Biden's senility at the debate has changed the polls very little.
There's a story I saw this morning, and I was surprised by this because, after the debate, everybody was jumping on get rid of Joe train. Even Joe Scarborough, the quasi-Republican, former Republican, who just weeks before said, I think this is the best version ever of Joe Biden going on. The next morning, he was like, oh my gosh, we got to do something. We got to change. I'm seeing now, this just published yesterday, expect a 180 reversal on calls for Biden to leave. They're saying this is the problem from the beginning of the Joe must go movement. If you're going to take a shot at the king, you better kill the king. It's always true. But in this case, the problem is just revenge from Joe Biden, but mixed messages to the voters. I mean, Democrats have a huge PR problem on their hands now. They're not supporting the president. Now they're going to pull back from that a little bit. How are they going to solve this problem when really there's a soft, deadline of August 4th coming in terms of getting somebody on the ballot? In many states, Ohio being the greatest. I mean, time's running out. The clock's running out for these guys. What are they going to do?
Well, most of the country, most of the Democratic Party, rank and file people think that Biden should not run for re-election. So now, in their cowardice, Democratic members of Congress who've been intimidated by Biden, they're going to, be even less impressive to the public because they don't have the courage to put up a fight at the convention. But I think the coverage here and the Democratic Party particularly are forgetting one thing. Joe Biden was deeply unpopular before everybody saw he was senile. Right. He's deeply unpopular because of the failure of his administration, because of the policies of his administration. Even if the Democrats are going to replace him, if they're going to replace Biden with a candidate who is going to run on the platform of the Biden administration's record, why should anybody vote Democratic?
No,
except for, hatred of Trump.
I mean, who could have imagined any of this 4 or 5 months ago when Trump was under, this trial, that trial, and obviously people don't like Trump for a number of personality reasons, but who could have possibly imagined that in just the space of a few months, the whole campaign has changed. All the dynamics have changed. And it really, I mean, it was true that for Biden, this has been a problem prior to, but the debate was the defining moment. And you could say about Hillary when she said you could put all the Trump supporters in the basket of the deplorables. Maybe that was the change for Hillary. But you have to say, if this goes as many people are suspecting that Trump wins the election, you have to say, almost as it was with Kennedy and Nixon, it was the debate that was the turning point that changed the campaign.
Yeah, well, Republicans have got something to think about, here too. With the record of the Biden administration being so terrible and the president's approval rating being so terrible, and then you throw his senility at the debate on top of that, an ordinary Republican candidate should be 20 points ahead.
Yeah.
But, Trump is, only a few points ahead. Do you think it's possible for Trump to campaign as a normal person for the remaining weeks of the campaign?
Well, I just heard somebody last night say they've been surprised at how silent Trump has been through all this. Trump hasn't made any comments about Biden. He hasn't been on the bandwagon about getting rid of Biden. And I think finally, for the first time, someone's gotten to him and said, let him implode. You don't need to pile on here. You don't need to say anything.
Well, I hope so. It'd be fine with me if he was never seen until the election. There's an old saying: never try to kill a man who's committing suicide. Why should Trump distract from Biden's collapse?
Yeah. That's good. All right, we're talking with the dean of journalism here in Connecticut, Chris Powell. Interesting story that the Democrats, once again, the Democrats, what they want to put an extra conveyance tax on houses over a certain dollar amount. Like if you sell your mansion, conveyance tax is what, 2%? Is that what it is for normal people?
I
You
think
sell your house?
there's a sliding scale
Sliding
now.
scale, okay. So what they want to increase the scale? They want to add a second tax? What are they trying to do?
Well,
They think somehow they're going to raise money doing this.
There's a think tank report that came out the other day. It was publicized by the Connecticut Mirror, saying that Connecticut could raise hundreds of millions of dollars if it put a special conveyance tax on the sale of mansions. I thought that was nothing that required a think tank to think about. I mean, Connecticut could raise hundreds of millions of dollars by raising taxes on anything.
Yeah, because if you throw the think tank label in, it makes it more legitimate.
Yeah, I guess so. And that report reflected a proposal by the state Senate president, Martin Looney of New Haven, who's been trying to get a special punitive property tax, statewide property tax, put on mansions. This is all being done in the name of housing, but and homelessness, of ending homelessness, getting more housing. Problem is, none of this new revenue would necessarily build any housing.
There's
there wouldn't
no
be any
guarantee.
requirement for it. If the history is any guide, most of the money would just be spent on raising the compensation of state and municipal employees. The housing problem we have in Connecticut, the desperate shortage, is not a matter of mansions taking up too much property. I mean, we've got huge amounts of abandoned property, industrial sites, ruined residential sites in the cities. There's plenty of room in the suburbs and the rural communities too. Mm-hmm. Mansions are not the cause of the housing problem in Connecticut. Yeah. The cause of the housing problem in Connecticut is partly inflation, which is really the Democratic policy. It's partly the illegal immigration we have here in Connecticut. I don't think it's a coincidence that the number of housing units we are supposedly short in Connecticut, about 100,000, is just about the same number of illegal immigrants estimated to be living in Connecticut. If you stop illegal immigration, well, yeah, if you stop illegal immigration, well, all of a sudden there's your 100,000 housing units, and then we have exclusive zoning. But exclusive zoning today isn't really racist anymore. Exclusive zoning is a matter of suburban fear of the pathologies of poverty that will come into towns if housing for the poor is made available. If government wasn't manufacturing poverty in the cities with its welfare policies and social promotion and education, there wouldn't be so much poverty to worry about. But I understand perfectly well why people don't want more housing accessible to the poor in the suburbs, is because they see what government has done destroying the cities with its poverty factors.
Right. I mean, I read a story last few weeks ago about Connecticut, nationwide, but Connecticut has overbuilt warehouse space. So there's virtually no warehouse construction happening anywhere in Connecticut, even on sites that have been approved. So you've got these 100,000, 200,000 square foot buildings sitting there empty with no one to lease them. Turn those into housing. I mean, you can put a lot of apartments in a 200,000 square foot building.
The urban office vacancy rate is huge. You could turn a lot of office buildings into mixed use housing with commercial retail offices on the first floors and apartments, condos upstairs. It's not as easily done as people think, just because of the architecture and
building requirements of safety and things.
But
warehouse is not.
It has been done, and it could be done. I mean, there's plenty of room for more housing, not just vacant and decrepit projects, but vacant office buildings as well. It's not mansions. Mansions are not
the problem. Breaking here today on the Will Marotti Show, the Dean of Connecticut Journalism says mansions are not the problem. So that's it. Chris, thank you so much. As always, appreciate your time. Keep writing, keep swinging, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you, Will. Bye-bye.
Right, talk to you next week. Thank you. Chris Powell, everybody. Hey, that's it. We are out of time. Great show today. Thank you, George. Thank you, everybody watching. So good. Appreciate your comments. And tomorrow, Wednesday, Reese on the radio. Going to be a great show. Love for you to tune in. Again, please, whatever platform you're watching on, and hopefully you'll move over to YouTube. That's what we're asking you to do. We need more YouTube subscribers. Incredibly important to the success of the program. So if you're, no matter what platform you're on, like, share, comment. If you're on YouTube, and we know we have a lot of unsubscribed watchers on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. You'd help us more than you can imagine. We really appreciate it. Call your friends, relatives, associates, neighbors. Ask them to join you and watch the show and listen later on Spotify. Thank you for everybody listening on Spotify. We appreciate you so much. Hey, awesome day. Thank you, Gigi. Thank you, LJ. Thank you, Roz. Didn't get you a lot of business today, Roz. I'm very sorry. We'll work on that tomorrow. More calls tomorrow. Hey, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the weather. It's going to be a warm one today. Can't wait. God bless you. I love you. See you tomorrow, 9 o'clock.